Okay, hi, my name is Sofia. I will be guiding today Ubidots Live. It is the first we're doing, and hopefully we will do a lot more. So today in this live with us is gonna be Agustin, that is the CEO and co-founder of Ubidots. Then we also have Jose, that is a software and hardware developer. And we have Cameron, which is our chief of operations. So the idea is that today we talk a little bit about NodeRED, also Ubidots, and IoT in general. So if you have any questions, just let us know. And if not, they will be just talking from the start and telling you some things about it.
Indeed. Thank you, Sophie, for the intro. Today we'll be talking a little bit about IoT, NodeRED as a starting point. And yeah, hopefully with your guys' questions, we'll be able to have a much richer conversation.
If you have any hardware question or something like that, and you wish to know more about NodeRED and how to use it in your embedded systems, feel free to write us your question in the chat, and we will answer it to you as fast as we can.
Cool. Just to follow up the last bit of that train, Sophie handles our marketing. Augustine is our head of kind of operations and the brainchild of Ubidots, and then with our expert firmware engineer here, Jose. I handle some of the business operations and the strategy here at Ubidots, and between the four of us sitting at this table, we certainly have the answers to your questions. And with that, I'd like to quickly turn it over to Augustine, who's going to quickly give us a little rundown of the NodeRED system and how it can be utilized in an industrial fashion to work well with Ubidots. Quick reminder as to what is NodeRED. NodeRED is an awesome IoT tool. It can be utilized in IoT applications, server applications, anything you need. But in today's demonstration, Augustine is going to be discussing NodeRED as a tool that you can use to send data to and from Ubidots and how to best utilize it in your potential applications.
Cool. Thanks, Cam. Yeah, so let's get hands-on and do some hacking together. So to kick off our conversation, we picked NodeRED as a starting point. As most of you know or are already familiar with Ubidots, we accept a lot of different types of protocols and tools to send data to our cloud. And NodeRED is increasingly becoming one of the go-to tools for industrial IoT gateways to relay data to the cloud, in this case, in this example, to Ubidots. Now, why we like it so much, here we have some examples. Siemens is one of them. So Siemens created an industrial gateway called the IoT 2040 that is actually shipping already with NodeRED built in. Some other examples include Multi-Tech Gateway, which is a LoRaWAN capable gateway, and the Opto 22, which is an industrial gateway that is already including NodeRED as a de facto. So to start, I created a little example here. Basically, in case you guys are not familiar with NodeRED, on my left, I have a palette, which is a collection of tools to wire things together. You have inputs, outputs. You can catch data here and then send it somewhere else. We'll see it in a bit. And then on the right side, I have a debugging console. And then basically, my code is all you're looking at. As you can see, it is a visual interface that we can use. And instead of having to write a ton of code, we can just piece things together in a nice way. And to tell you a little bit about why we built this example. So basically, what we'll be learning today is how can we get Bitcoin prices to Ubidots. And I'm just going to jump right ahead so that you can see what the end result looks like. Here I have a device called cryptocurrencies that is getting live Bitcoin prices as we speak. Now, sure.
Hey, what are some good reasons that you would want to use Bitcoin in IoT?
Yeah, great question. So Bitcoin is an example. A typical use case would be, let's say I have a mining server, and this mining server is using a lot of energy. Now, I want to make sure that the energy I use and the kilowatt per hour that I'm paying is actually producing Bitcoins at a price that is worth selling. So I can create a logic so that if the Bitcoin price is not high enough, then I should shut down my mining server. And to put this into a more, into the more real scenario, it's the same with energy prices. So with energy prices, there's actually a customer in Australia that's using live energy prices, feeding them to Ubidots, and then based on that, deciding whether they should inject the energy that they generate to the network or stay with it and store it in their batteries. So it's at the end, it's good that you ask, because IoT is all about wiring or piecing together the digital and the physical. Most of us hardware engineers, well, like Jose, myself, and probably a lot of the guys, the people in the audience, we handle the physical world, we handle how to interface with that world, but then it has to come somewhere in the digital plane where you make sense of this data. So now going back to NodeRED, how did I do that? It was actually pretty easy. I just literally went on Google and I searched Bitcoin APIs. I came across one that is called Chasing Coins. As you can see, it uses a very simple format. I literally went straight to their API, and I saw that they have these nice JSON responses, which is exactly the format that we use at Ubidots. So they give you a URL that you query. I'm going to double click here, this URL, and it just returns the live Bitcoin price. If I go to my browser and I type this URL, I will see the Bitcoin price over here. So I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. I don't need to create an account. I don't need to have special credentials. I'm just going to put it in NodeRED. Now what you see here is exactly what I did in my web browser. So our browsers make HTTP GET requests, and using the HTTP node that already ships with NodeRED, which is here, HTTP request, I created a GET request, and then I used the GET method, as I said. One important thing is that this method comes by default as a string. So it will return a plain string that is received, but I specified to create a JSON object. Now, JSON, you might be wondering, why is it important for IoT?
JSON, what's the difference between JSON and a string? How does Ubidots handle it? What's the more valuable resources?
Indeed. So what happens in the internet was designed for computers, not for embedded devices. And originally, a lot of APIs supported different protocols like XML or even plain text. And more recently, the world has been turning over to JSON, which is a very simple to read format. A lot of APIs and a lot of firmware and software libraries already support the parsing or the understanding of this format. So this is what a lot of APIs use, and Ubidots is no exception. So we also use JSON as the way to both accept data and return data if you query our API. Now, let's move on to the next node. So what I did here is I literally went and created the payload as it is expected by Ubidots. So you might be wondering, so as we know, the Ubidots payload is this. So you send the variable and then the value. This is what we know as a JSON payload. And this is what you would typically send, temperature equals 22, and so on. In this case, we are setting up a payload that is BTC. That's the name I gave to my variable. And then I extract from the payload that I received from the Bitcoin API, I extract the price portion of it. And all I have to do is then to pass this to the next node, which is Ubidots node, as a payload in this format. Now, if I click here, you will see that our node has basically 3 fields. So one is the token. This is what we use for authentication. I'm gonna go ahead and double click on it. So this is your account's token. As some of you might already know, you can extract it from this option here over here, API credentials. Copy the token, you bring it over here, and then there's an optional field called the device label, which is the unique API identifier of your device within Ubidots. This is optional because you might want to send it programmatically. I'm explaining itself. Let's imagine you have a gateway that is connecting 1,000 devices out in the field. So you're receiving data from 1,000 devices. So you don't have to create 1,000 Ubidots nodes with a device label each. You just send this programmatically in the payload as message.deviceLabel equals, and then the unique identifier of the device that's talking to the gateway at that specific moment. And that's just about it. So as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward node. Here is just a trigger. It means it's running every 5 minutes. So I can, NodeRED ships with this, they call it injection nodes. You can set it to send an interval or just to be triggered with the push of a button. And if you see here, I'm just gonna push, I see this number, 6,423, and that is the number that I have gotten here in my Ubidots account.
That's pretty cool. Can you give me a little bit more understanding? What are some of the limitations that we have using NodeRED, and how we can ingest information to a gateway, from sensors to a gateway, and then how that information is best utilized in Ubidots? I know that we can visualize it simply on dashboards and the variables, stuff like that. But what's a great other way that NodeRED can be utilized in the industrial space, other than just simply seeing that data exists? I mean, it's such a cool tool to be able to visualize data flows. Can you tell us a little bit more about data flows and the value of that in the IoT sphere?
Sure. So the typical case is aggregating data. So you want to use NodeRED within a gateway, be it a Raspberry Pi or a more industrial gateway like the ones we brought up at the beginning. And then you want to use what these gateways have, so be it a LoRaWAN interface or a Bluetooth low energy interface to ingest the data. Now, what can you do? For example, it depends on the device. The Raspberry Pis ship with a GPIO node, meaning that you can actually interface with the sensors and actuators that are attached to Raspberry Pi directly from NodeRED. So that makes it, it's just an example of how you can use it to interface with something and not only to cloud services. Does that answer your question, or are you looking more towards the dashboard side and the?
No, I think that's a really good job. It gave me a better understanding of what I should be doing working with NodeRED. What limitations do I have, though? I mean, everything has a limitation. Certainly NodeRED does too. Where should I be avoiding development using NodeRED and instead be looking other places? Can you give me a little bit of understanding where the limitations exist with NodeRED sending data?
Sure. And I'll reply and then turn it over to Jose for a little bit more of on-the-ground experience, as he has been to dozens of installations. So there's like an ongoing discussion whether NodeRED should stay as an open source tool for prototyping, or whether it's ready for production environments. So I think it is ready for production environments, and the proof of this are guys like, for example, Opto22, Multitech, the ones we were talking about, where they took what IBM did, which is this open source tool that everybody loves, and they adapted it in a way that works in a device like this, industrial, rigid, Druid, and solid. So if NodeRED is shipping with the device that you already bought from a known manufacturer, such as Siemens or Opto22, then I would say yes, go ahead and use it. When to avoid it? Now, if you have a cloud server and you want to create a pricing scrapper like we just did, look for a price online and put it in another web service. It is very tempting to do it with NodeRED because it's just so easy. But if you want this server to be online 99.99% of the time, then I would advise you to actually go and use a Node.js server for it, as opposed to using a tool just because it's easier to code. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents. What do you think, Jose?
Well, I think that NodeRED is a good option if you have an embedded system. I mean, when you have a microprocessor and a microcontroller, because it's really painful to create a GET request or an entity publish using only pure C. It's really hard, especially for us as hardware engineers. So if you have an embedded system like this one from Siemens, which includes also microprocessor and a microcontroller to read, which the microcontroller is reading constantly the sensor data, and the microprocessor on the NodeRED just make the hard work for us, that is to publish to Ubidots, to use all of these cloud protocols, which is really hard to implement in a microcontroller. It's really easy to implement them in NodeRED because it's already done. So what probably if you make that using only pure C, it would be, I don't know, 200 or 300 lines of code. And in NodeRED it's only 2 or 3 nodes, so it's really easy. And you can use only C to the hard stuff about the hardware. I don't know, interruptions, stuff like that, and use NodeRED to send those data to externals like Ubidots, where you need just only visualization purposes and to store the data that you read from the sensor. So the main purpose of this kind of languages, or this kind of programming tools, is to make easier for us as developers to integrate what we read or what we are doing with the cloud. So that's the main advantage from this kind of languages. Also, there's nothing perfect, but this is a very powerful tool, and it's also developed by IBM. So I think that it's not about, the question is not about if it is good or if it is bad. It's about how should we use it to use it that properly. That would be the question. So my 2 cents is that it's a good option for embedded systems where you have a microprocessor with a Linux or something like that.
Cool. And with that, I would like to also encourage the audience, if you guys have any questions more general about IoT, if you have ideas, you have projects you have in mind, and how you think we can help you solve your doubts in terms of how to make them faster or easier. Just Sophie, do we have any other questions there, or Cameron in the audience? Let me check.
No, I've got to check my email real quick.
Wait.
I got an email here from James out of New York. James is asking, how many dots can I send per second to Ubidots from my device? And he says that he's using the industrial Ubidots platform.
Okay, good question. So technically, if you do a bulk upload, you can send 1 million dots, because we support a timestamp that is in milliseconds. So that's 1 million in a second. Sorry, in micro, but in as a best practice for our API, we support 4 dots per second. That's the limit for industrial API.
Cool. Is that the same with NodeRED as well? If you're using NodeRED to send data, does that work the entire same way, or is it a different system? I'm new to the IoT world. I've only been around, so
No,
I'm
absolutely.
learning new things, just like a lot of our users.
You know, that's a good one, because NodeRED has something called throttling. So even if you have those 1,000 devices we talked about hitting a router, you can put a throttling right before the Ubidots node and set it to 4 seconds. So NodeRED will make sure that it doesn't matter if there's a spike in the amount of traffic, it will always dosify or make a dose of 4 dots per second. So that's also, there you go, another reason to use NodeRED for in natural IoT gateway.
Cool.
So the next question is from Sara in Mexico City, and she's questioning us, what happens if I'm sending data to Ubidots but my internet was down per 10 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is what we internally in embedded engineers would call data logging. It's a very standard practice, very useful exactly for those kind of cases where their internet is down. And in a general sense, what you would do is you want your embedded design to have a way to store data and then upload it in bulk to the cloud, in this case, Ubidots. So now zooming into NodeRED, there are some nodes that allow you to store like a file. So let's say you have a collection of these JSON formats that we just saw from the last 10 minutes. Let's say if you were sending data every minute, then you would have 10 of these little JSON payloads, each one with a corresponding timestamp. So Ubidots API supports the ability to send a timestamp as an optional field. So this would allow you to kind of catch up after the internet is restored.
Okay, and we have another question, and it is: Are you tested tool as octoblue.com instead of NodeRED?
I'm particularly not familiar with Octoblue, so we can definitely check it out, and it's great that you bring it up for the audience. If it's something that you can install in a gateway to relay data over to the cloud, I'm sure this particular tool will use or will support protocols such as HTTP, and if so, then it's compatible with Ubidots. What Ubidots is about, and I know most of you guys already know about us, is we enable you to create user experiences. So it's not just about sending data to the cloud. It's mostly about creating an end user interface that your end customers can make use of. So it's not only your tool as an admin, it's a product for your end users.
Okay, and we have another question. It is, okay, actually the guy that just asked about Octoblue is telling us that it looks very similar to NodeRED.
Cool, Hugo.
And
Yeah,
thank you for that.
I just pulled it up on my computer. I too had not heard of Octoblue, but it looks awesome. Like I'm looking at the flowcharts that they're able to create. It's pretty cool stuff.
Good. Cool.
I'll have to check this out.
And there is someone that is asking if you would recommend to use NodeRED in production deployments.
Okay, so similar to what we were talking about, pros and cons. So my 2 cents there is do it when it is supported by the original manufacturer. So if you bought something that already has NodeRED built in, it means that the person who put it there already tested it and already tried to break it and already left it in production environment to see what happened. What I wouldn't do though is to use, let's say, a self-wire Raspberry Pi with NodeRED in it and an SD card with an operating system for a production application. So I would replace that with an industrial grade gateway, even if it has or not NodeRED.
Okay. Oh, okay, we just got another question, and it is, okay, wait, why the Ubidots industrial app cost is too low?
Okay, who is that? John, thank you for your question. So this is very relative. Now, imagine you have a vending machine that is sending data once per day, and that vending machine is generating revenue at, let's say, $1,000 per month. And because of installing a device, you're able to grow the sales and to provision it faster and sell double, like maybe 1,500. With the same logic, I'm talking about a standard application. Now let's talk about a mission critical application. Let's talk about a device that is installing a refrigerator that has vaccines that are life-saving that could not be given to anyone if they have been outside a temperature range, and then IoT is the only means to know if these vaccines have been outside a specific threshold. So it really depends on the use case. What we see, or what we do as a platform, is to come up with a pricing that is that works for us, of course, in a cost plus margin basis. You know, we're a business. You and I want to make sure that we stay for the long run. And second, because the integrators that use our product, who actually go to the end customer, are realizing all the value. So if you're an integrator and you're listening to this, or even you, Yonam, if you want to create your own company or you already have one, then Ubidots will cost you between $0.5 or $3 per device per month, depending on the amount of devices that you have. But I can assure you that the value that you realize when offering this to the end client will allow you to top charge per device at least 10, 20, if not more, $30 per month. So we end up being, in most cases, like 5% of the overall cost of the monthly subscription for what our customers are doing with their end customers. So yeah, in my opinion, it's not.
Yeah, I too can echo that. I handle most, if not all, of the marketing and sales numbers. And from that, I can also say with experience that most of our clientele, after they've reached the deployment stage, they are able to turn over more income than they are outbound cash to Ubidots. In addition to that, what's also really important and really cool is if you do have an application and it's a small application where you're deploying maybe 50 devices and $3 a device is too expensive, please reach out to our team. We're in business to be in business, and that includes all of the makers and developers out there. So if you have a local solution that you're looking to deploy to Joe the neighbor for your home irrigation system, we're going to help you do that. And if $3 per device is too expensive, we understand that. We're here to help you grow. And if that requires us to make small concessions to see you grow, we're here to do that. So please reach out to our team directly and we can work with anybody on pricing. But as pricing stands, it's a very simple model, as Augustine expressed, and it's designed to help you have a markup on your products. So if you're selling one device for $20 per device, Ubidots might only take $1 of that each month. So it's a pretty good margin, it's a pretty good gap, and we leave that to all of our integrating clients to create that markup, create that income, create the profitability, because it's their idea, it's their intelligence. We're just kind of the back end and the backbone that gets them there.
Cool.
So we have another question from Yonam, and he's asking what method to upload dots is better, webhook, TCP, UDP, or mtqq. Please answer my question. I'm very interested in which method.
Better for Particle Photon. Okay, cool. So I see you're using Particle Photon. They have a great family of products. So pros and cons. TCP and UDP, I would pick for cellular connectivity. It's very lightweight. It's a small footprint. UDP doesn't have an acknowledge method, so you have to be prepared to lose packets if you can afford that. We see a lot of use cases that do that. They send 10 packets, they lose 5, but still it works for them because of cellular connectivity issues and so on. The problem with this too is that it's not. It's not encrypted. So you will be sending data, and then a malicious party could get in and probably see what you're sending. So that's the downside of those two. The good about the HTTP and MQTT is that they can be encrypted. HTTP, and it's a bit more heavier than MQTT. The packets are a bit bigger. It has a lot of overhead, whereas MQTT was designed for applications like this, for IoT, and it also offers a nice way to create downlinks. So in HTTP, if you want to create a downlink, let's say you want to control a valve to open or close, then in HTTP, the valve has to be asking the cloud every second, should I stay open, or should I close, should I close, should I close? It's like a polling mechanism. With MQTT, the valve is just connected to the cloud, waiting for an instruction. So that also saves a lot of bandwidth for particular applications. So it's really up to your applications. And then I would add a fifth option there in the cases that you use Particle, because you have this webhook potential where you can, instead of bypassing Particle, you could go directly to Particle's cloud, send the data there. They have an encrypted mechanism, and then from Particle, create a webhook to reach the Ubidots cloud.
I personally have some experience working with Particle, and it's been my experience that the webhook coming directly from the Particle cloud is really valuable. It's a cool tool, and it also gives you a lot of debugging capabilities. So if something doesn't hit the Particle cloud, you know it won't make it to the Ubidots cloud. And more importantly, if something hits the Particle cloud, but it somehow doesn't make it to Ubidots cloud, we at least collectively as Ubidots, as Particle, and as you as the developer, we can help debug what happened there to ensure that it doesn't happen anymore. That's one of the best things about working directly with Particle is they're a great team. They've got awesome support network with their forums. And between us and them, we've been growing quite a bit, at least from my aspect of the business side. So, yeah.
Okay, we have other questions. So the next question is, when will the dynamic dashboards be released?
Okay, good, David. Thanks for that question. I see you've been probably talking to our product team because that's the term we use for something we will be releasing. So in case you guys didn't know about this, we will be building the whole dashboard tool from the ground up. This includes not only faster speed, new type of programming language that we're using, but also increased functionalities. Among those, we have a dynamic dashboard, which we will have the possibility to have just one dashboard for all of my devices. So you click, you select your device, and then the dashboard will automatically update depending or based on that device's data. That's going to save you a lot of provisioning time and configuring time. So we have this quarter, so internally for testing, it's already on development. And then 2 weeks after the quarter is done, this is the day where we typically launch all the new tools that we developed in the previous quarter. So we should be looking at mid of October.
Cool. And more questions are coming. Any plans including machine learning models for streaming analytics?
Okay, I'm excited. So who's Jose? Good, thanks for asking that. And if you have any ideas, this is how we build the whole thing. Like we have our own concepts, and then we hear what our customers are building, and that's where the magic happens. And that's how basically how Ubidots has been built. Analytics, we have a model that we're working on. This model will have initially 3 capabilities. Anomaly detection. So we are working on a pretty solid unsupervised anomaly detection mechanism to allow you to, let's say, get a time series or stream analytics, as you call it, to detect if there's something subnormal with the data based on the past history or the past behavior. Second, we have a general navigation model where you will be able to explore data, compare data, make moving averages, trend lines, regression algorithms, extract the equation of the regression algorithm, all of the tools that most data scientists are familiar with. And then third, we're working on a forecasting mechanism using neural networks. And as some of you know, the AI community has been making a lot of progress in a lot of things, and we're tapping into a lot of those progresses in terms of the algorithms that could be trained to predict the next output of the next data point of a time series. And we will be including all of this into a whole separate model. And this is still R&D. Probably shouldn't be so specific about it, but you're part of the family. And yeah, we're working on it, and this is something that is to be remained as R&D this year. But hopefully, towards the end of the year, we will have a first view of what this is going to look like for the end users.
Okay, and David has another question. He's asking, will we be able to get a better layout for mobiles?
Okay, mobile. So we have two experiences for mobile. One is the responsive application. The other one is the mobile application that we have on the Play Store. We launched it in Q2, tested it. We've been getting early Q1, I think. We've been getting nice reviews, and if you know it, please go and review it. This is exactly what we're looking for, because based on that, we're porting it to in two things. One is, of course, an iOS version, but the other one, more importantly, is to give you the ability to bake your own application so that you can sell it to your own customers, just as you currently do with the web application, where you put your logo and your colors. We will enable you to do the same and bake your own executable or your own application that then you yourself can submit to the Play Store or the iOS store to tell your customers to go and download it.
Okay.
I got a quick question. When would we be expecting something like that? What kind of development time? I know that we've certainly got a lot on our plate. I know what the schedule is, but our users don't. So what should they be expecting on timeline?
So the custom bake application is something that is already in beta version. Some of our customers are already testing it in the fields. We're to add the automation of this baking in the end of this quarter as well. Now the iOS application, we'll be announcing it over our newsletter channels once it's ready to go live.
Okay, and then we also have, just a second, have Ubidots some features especially designed for LoRaWAN Networks?
Okay, so we have a little bit about LoRaWAN for those of you who are not familiar with it. LoRaWAN needs a LoRaWAN network server. So unlike the typical IoT architecture where you have a device and Ubidots, there's a third party involved where you need a LoRaWAN device and you need a LoRaWAN network server, and then that network server communicates with external cloud such as Ubidots. In our product decision regarding LoRaWAN was, instead of us trying to reinvent the wheel, coming up with a LoRaWAN network server, we said, okay, we're going to partner with the best to create a nice LoRaWAN network server experience, or overall experience for LoRaWAN. First two companies we're working with is the TheThingNetwork and Comcast. So with these two, we want to enable the users to have a better LoRaWAN experience. And what it means for you, and to get your question, what is specific for LoRaWAN, you would have something called a data plugin. So you would select the TheTingNetwork, and then if you have your devices in the TheTingNetwork, for example, then we will automatically synchronize with them so that you would create, you would get a device created in your Ubidots account from the TheTingNetwork directly. So that's kind of what to expect in terms of better or deeper LoRaWAN integrations.
Yeah, that'll be really cool because it should be able to alleviate a lot of the setup steps. Like, I know that one of the hardest and the biggest barriers to entry that we see on the sales side is just how to get your data online. That sounds like a pretty cool tool. Can you explain a little bit more of like what is a data plugin? How is it going to be used in the future? Like, I know that I use it in my personal account, and I know that it's something that we can all use, and most likely a lot of people will be able to use. I know that we've got some things coming down the line with TTN specifically, even AWS, which will be really great too. But can you just give us a little bit of leeway from the head honcho?
Sure. So this is becoming a feature announcement talk, which is very exciting. I do product here, so this is my number one passion. So yeah, we're coming up with a new model. It's called data plugins. What this allows you to do is to pull data from different sources, either pull data or receive data, because we found that a lot of the wiring of IoT is not happening as simple as I said with device to cloud. There's a lot of intermediate steps in some cases. Two great examples is LoRaWAN, as I said, and the other one is AWS. So what this experience means is we will have an entirely new model where you select among a list of options. This list of options will become an ecosystem, just like we did with the firmware libraries. This ecosystem would include, for example, AWS. You click on it, you connect your AWS account, and then you're able to automatically see all of your AWS devices in your Ubidots account. And all of a sudden, we empower you to make sense of the device data that looks like a database in the other side. And then in Ubidots, you can actually create all the dashboards and alerts and analytics in the future needed to empower your application.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we also have a new question that it's, for example, do you suggest the TheThingNetwork plus Ubidots
absolutely.
scheme?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were one of the, actually our CTO, Gustavo, he's not here, he's in the other room. He was one of the first backers of TTN, so the TheThingNetwork. So yeah, we have the router. We have used it for POCs with customers. We have seen it in production, and it's just the way they built the experience. I think it's in line with Ubidots' philosophy. So they really took care of all the steps and how to simplify those steps, and we're actually working with them very closely to brainstorm how we can even have less steps so that you guys can get online faster.
Okay, we have a really interesting question, and is, can I use Ubidots plus Sigfox plus NodeRED?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me think how you can use it. So I'm going to ask for the first two. So in the same logic, Sigfox is, again, a third-party platform who we also play nicely with. We're actually a Sigfox certified partner. I mean, it means that we went through the process. They have to get certified as a cloud platform. And in Sigfox, you get messages from your remote devices in their cloud. You create a callback, and then that data is relayed to our cloud. And we also have downlink possibilities. And this is something that is already working, that we see work, and we see an increase in the adoption of Sigfox as well. Now, in which cases, I'm just brainstorming live here, would you want to include NodeRED? I would say in the remote case that you have a very specific data frame that you want to transform, maybe you want to have a NodeRED server between Sigfox and Ubidots to change the data that's received from Sigfox and put it into Ubidots' format. But even so, that part is not necessary. I would try to go straight to Ubidots, not only because it's less points in the system, but also because we also have a new model called Ubi Functions, which allows you to do just that. So with Ubi Functions, you can create your own API. Let's say I'm just going to create a GET request API, that like the one we just saw for the Bitcoin, and it will receive data and then push that data to Ubidots. So exactly what we did here, I know we did it for example purposes, you could do it within Ubidots itself. So, and this goes back to one of my thinkings earlier, which is use NodeRED when it's not in the cloud. So use it in IoT devices like this, use it in IoT gateways, but there's no need to use it in the cloud, because for cloud you already have like a good ecosystem of tools.
Okay. It was okay. We have some good comments of some of our customers, but I think this should be all for today. I think it has been a good 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And is there anything else you want to say about NodeRED or Ubidots or?
No, I think that you should go with the advice from Agustin. Don't think to use NodeRED if you need to deploy an infrastructure. So if you need some bare metal server in the cloud, don't go with NodeRED. Go with NodeRED if it's already embedded on your device. It's the easiest way to use it, and for me, it's the best way to use that programming language, because the idea of developing with IoT is that you make things easier, not that you make the things in the hard way. So if you plan to deploy NodeRED in the cloud, you need a lot of stuff, and with a better system that all that stuff is already done, and it's really easy to program in NodeRED. So use for that, for program in a easier way. Yeah, that's my advice. And no, I think that it's a great language, and also Ubidots. It's nice that Ubidots supports it, so go for it.
Okay. So I think that was pretty much for today. We will have our next live in 2 weeks. We'll be posting it on Facebook, so you know exactly the hour and what will be the topic. Still, if you have any questions, just write to us through Facebook or through any of our channels, and then we will be answering the questions the next Facebook Live. I think it was all for today. Remember that if you have more questions, we also have the help desk, and we have our YouTube Ubidots Academy channel.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
All right.